The screaming started before the first bell. It echoed from the east stairwell of Gravebirch High, that withered carcass of a school hunched on the outskirts of Vilebrook like a tumor. The sky above was colorless, ash-blind. Inside, the halls were wet with silence, the kind that drowns. By the time someone found the scene, the screaming had stopped. All that remained was the trail, dark, sticky, and streaked across the linoleum like paint from a dying god. It led from the stairwell across the east wing and ended in front of the janitor's closet. Room 237. Locked, chained, sealed with a rusted iron cross bolted into the wood. A relic. But now the door hung open. Fresh scratch marks clawed the frame. The faint stink of bleach burned the eyes. There was something else, too, coppery and burnt, like blood boiled alive. Principal Gellert swore he had seen Mr. Aldrich just an hour before, walking into the stairwell, carrying coffee, wearing that faded brown suit and humming a song no one recognized, then gone, vanished, swallowed whole by a place that had long forgotten the rules of reality. The police came and found nothing, no body, no sign of a struggle, only that trail and the jingle. Some students whispered about it, the jingle of keys in an empty hallway, sharp and deliberate. It was always just ahead, never behind. Cass Donovan heard it first. She had been by her locker when the screams began. The air shifted, thickened, like breath caught in a throat. The lights overhead stuttered, then dimmed to a sickly orange. Something moved down the hallway, tall, slow, dragging one leg. Keys jingled with each step. She froze, couldn't breathe, couldn't think, only stared as a figure passed the end of the hall, backlit by flickering fluorescence. It didn't look human. And then it was gone. Students were evacuated. Teachers corralled them onto buses. Whispers grew like mold. The janitor took him. Ezra, Marley, Rowan, and Cass met at the edge of the football field, huddled beneath the weeping bleachers. The sky had turned the color of old bone. None of them spoke for a long time. They all remembered the stories. Gravebirch High had its legend, passed down like a curse, a janitor who wasn't really a man, who walked the halls long after the school closed, who hunted the dirty, the wicked, the loud. "He scrubs sins," Ezra whispered once. The legend always ended the same way. You hear the keys, then you disappear. Gravebirch High had always been a place the town didn't speak of unless it had to. Even its name had a rot to it, named after a tree that doesn't grow in the region, a tree known for growing atop graves in colder places. A mistake, some said, but others knew better. The building had been constructed in 1931, after the old schoolhouse burned down with 27 students inside. The cause was never found. The official records said faulty wiring. Survivors told a different story. They spoke of a man with a black apron and a ring of keys who walked through fire untouched, pulling children into the smoke. And then came Emery Thorne. He was hired in 1958 as the school's night janitor, quiet, polite, but there was something wrong about him. He never blinked, never smiled. He scrubbed the same spots over and over until the tile beneath cracked. He stared at stains like they whispered to him. And then, in 1963, came the disappearances. 4 students, 1 teacher, all vanished within 6 weeks, all last seen near the boiler room, near room 237. When Emery Thorne didn't show up for his shift one night, the principal at the time went looking for him. He found blood, teeth, and a broom split down the middle like it had been crucified. They sealed room 237 that same night. People say something screamed from behind the door as they locked it. Something old, something grateful. The town moved on. Vilebrook always moved on. But the stories lingered. passed on by older siblings, carved into desks, written in the margins of yearbooks. He waits with a mop and a grin. Clean halls mean he's hungry again. The four friends had heard them all. Sleepovers where they dared each other to whisper his name in the dark. Cass remembered sneaking to the second floor when she was 12, pressing her ear to room 237. She heard keys and breathing. That memory came back now like ice water down her spine. She had felt it then, that room 237 wasn't empty, that it was watching. The boiler room breathed. That's what it felt like as Ezra descended the narrow iron stairs before first period, the next morning wrapped in gray mist. He wasn't supposed to be there. The door had been padlocked since yesterday's horror, but someone had snapped the lock, not cut, snapped, bent like taffy. The warmth hit first, dense and clinging, like the breath of something foul rising from the earth. The air had weight. He tasted mold, copper, old soap, and something sweet and rotting. The beam from his flashlight cut through the dark and watery arcs. Shadows squirmed along the pipes overhead. The walls sweated. Ezra's heartbeat ticked like a second hand as he moved deeper. Then he saw them, mirrors, dozens of them, haphazardly arranged in a ring around the ancient iron boiler. All cracked, warped. Some were handhelds from old makeup kits, others smashed shards from lockers or bathroom walls. Each mirror faced inward, toward the center, toward nothing. Until something moved. Ezra stepped closer, breath trembling. His own reflection flinched in 30 distorted fragments. But in one mirror, a jagged shard from a chemistry lab beaker, there was another face. Eyes. Sunken, dull as dirty coins, rimmed in bruised black skin and too wide, too knowing. The keys jingled, a sharp, deliberate sound in the suffocating silence. Ezra turned. His flashlight swung wildly, illuminating only pipes and grime and old blood-streaked tiles. But the mirrors, they still showed the eyes, following. Then the scraping began. Metal dragged across concrete. Ezra bolted. He didn't remember the climb, only the way his feet bled from scraping metal steps, the sickening realization that the jingling was closer above him now, echoing in reverse. He burst out into daylight, gasping like a drowning man, the door slamming behind him with a clang that echoed like a bell tolling a burial. He told no one. But when he sat down at lunch, hands still shaking, blood crusted beneath his nails, the others saw it in his face. Rowan was first to speak. "Something's wrong with this school." "We always knew that," Marley muttered, eyes on the table. "No," Ezra rasped, barely able to form the words. "It's awake now." Cass stared at him, a hollow knot twisted in her chest. "You went down there," he nodded. "He's waiting." That night Cass dreamt she was in the girls' bathroom. The mirrors were fogged. She wiped the glass and her reflection stared back, motionless. But behind her, in the stall, the door creaked open. A shadow dragged a mop. Smoke leaked from under the door. The last thing she saw was a figure looming behind her in the reflection, holding a broken broom handle. A finger touched her shoulder. She woke screaming. Cass didn't go back to sleep after the dream. She sat by her window until dawn, watching the mist roll through Vilebrook like a funeral shroud. Her skin crawled. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking. When her phone buzzed, she nearly screamed. "Rowan, meet at the bleachers. Now." She dressed without thinking, heart thudding against her ribs like a fist behind drywall. At the field, the others were already waiting. Ezra pale, Marley chewing her lip raw, Rowan pacing. "I told someone," Rowan said. The words dropped like a body. "Who?" Cass asked, dread soaking her bones. Rowan hesitated. "Miss Ellery, the librarian." Silence stretched, tight as wire. She's always known more than she lets on, Rowan continued. She has files, old yearbooks, clippings, stuff that's not in any record anymore. Ezra stepped forward. You told her? She already knew. That stopped them. She said she's been waiting for signs, waiting for him to wake up again. Marley's voice became small. What did she say about room 237? Rowan swallowed. She said it was never supposed to be opened. They went to the library after school. The lights were dim, the air stale. Ms. Ellery was waiting near the back beside the restricted archive, thin, sharp-eyed, hands folded like a priest at a funeral. You shouldn't be here, she said. But we are, Cass replied. Ellery studied them a long time, then nodded. He's not a ghost, she whispered. Not a man, not anymore. Ezra stepped closer. Then what is he? She turned, unlocked a drawer, pulled out a photo, black and white, dated 1959. Emery Thorne stood in the background, face blurred, but the ring of keys at his side was clear. He was a scrubber, Ellery said, a kind of purifier, born in the dark places where the world forgets to look. They clean what we don't want to see, sins, secrets, blood. She laid down another photo, a burned classroom, desks melted, shadows scorched into the floor. But he wanted more. He didn't want to scrub the mess. He wanted to make it, feed from it, Cass whispered. Why room 237? Ellery's face tightened. Because it was the only place that could hold him. A lockbox, blessed, cursed, sealed with iron and salt, and it worked until the seal weakened. Because of what? Marley asked. Ellery's voice dropped. Because someone called him back. That night, the four friends couldn't sleep. Cass lay in bed, covers tight around her, breath short. Her phone buzzed again. No ID. Then the lights flickered. In her hallway, something scraped the floor, dragging, slow. A shadow passed under her door, then the jingle. Cass covered her mouth, trembling. She heard it, soft, right outside her room. A whisper like bleach poured on bone. Dirty. They jingled again. That sound, that soft metallic chime that sliced through silence like a whisper with teeth, echoed down the main hallway of Gravebirch High. Marley was the first to hear it. She had stayed late, lingering in the art room to finish her sketch of the figure Cass described from her dream. Only it wasn't a dream. Marley knew that now. The sound came in waves, not constant, not rhythmic, just enough to make her doubt she'd heard it. She froze, charcoal stick paused in her hand, staring out the window as the final fingers of dusk crawled across the glass. Her breath fogged the pane. She blinked. There, across the courtyard, was room 237, still chained, still sealed. But someone stood at the window. The figure was tall, obscured in silhouette, with a janitor's cap low over its face. Steam bled from the cracked window pane beside it, forming slow spirals that didn't rise. It was watching her. The keys jingled again. Marley backed away from the window, heart punching her ribs. She packed her bag quickly, not daring to look back. Every step felt wrong, like she was walking down into something. The hallway outside was dim and still, every locker like a tomb. Then the lights flickered. Just once. Then again. Then off. Her phone light barely cut the dark. Shadows pulsed on the walls like they were breathing. She passed a classroom door. Something stood inside, just stood, facing the blackboard. The sound of scrubbing echoed through the crack, wet, frantic, as if someone were erasing something written in blood. She ran. Footsteps followed, wet slaps against tile, not hers. When she finally burst out into the night, the sound vanished. Silence clung to her like a second skin. She turned back. The hallway behind her was empty, still, but something in the reflection of the glass door showed a shape. Holding keys. Rowan didn't sleep that night. He sat at his desk staring at the old map of Vilebrook he'd stolen from the library archives. He'd seen something strange in the margins, a faded note written in smudged pencil. Clean what was buried, clean what was promised. Rowan traced a shaking finger along the lines of the town's foundation. There, behind the school, beneath where the boiler room now sat, was something older, a name scratched in tiny script. Thorn Mausoleum. He searched the town registry online. No such place was listed, not anymore. But his grandmother had once told him a story back when he was 5 and still scared of thunder. The dead don't rest where they're scrubbed, they wait where they rot. His skin crawled. The janitor didn't just kill, he cleanses. He scrubs away what the town refuses to face, what it hides, the dirty secrets, the sins. Marley burst into his room at 2:13 a.m., panting, pale, shaking with tears in her eyes. "He followed me," she whispered. "He followed me home." They turned to the window. On the glass, in the condensation, someone had drawn a mop. The next day, the school was half empty. Rumors spread of another disappearance, a senior named Clay who had snuck into the basement on a dare. They never found Clay, only his shoes, still warm, neatly placed in front of room 237. Cass, Ezra, Marley, and Rowan huddled in the library, every breath between them thick with dread. "He's choosing people," Ezra said. "Not random, people who know, people who talk, people who go near that room." "He's warning us," Cass said. "Or testing us," Rowan swallowed hard. "We need to find out who he was before he was this." Cass nodded slowly. "And we need to find out who's helping him." A pause. Ezra looked up. "You think someone's helping him?" "The doors open by themselves," Marley whispered. "Keys move on their own. Lights flicker, power shuts down, someone's guiding him." Rowan stared down at the map again. Beneath Gravebirch High, something ancient waited. A pact, a name, a sacrifice. The janitor didn't start as a monster. He was made into one, and someone in town made him. There was no official blueprint of the stairwell behind the rusted vending machine outside the condemned gym, the one that hadn't been used since the asbestos scare in 1981. No janitor had stocked it in decades. No camera ever caught students near it, yet somehow it was always there, waiting. Marley saw it first. She didn't remember walking to it. One moment she was standing in the hallway with the others, Rowan turning a faded page of the town archives, Cass muttering about the janitor's eyes in her dreams, Ezra trying to joke the tension away, and the next she was in front of it. Her hand trembling over the warped metal, fingertips brushing the faint impression of a mop burned into the steel. The others joined her without a word. They pried the door open. It screeched like a dying breath, and a wave of air exhaled from within, heavy, fetid, warm. The darkness beyond was not empty. It pulsed. The stairs spiraled into blackness. They descended. The walls were damp. Old bricks crumbled under their feet. The smell was unbearable. Mildew and bleach mixed with something older, rust and rot. The air was thick with mold and something else, something sweet and wrong, like fruit left too long in the sun. They reached the bottom and found the room. Circular, old, The walls lined with tattered parchment, symbols scrawled in fading ink and scorched edges. Buckets, mops, and broken brooms were arranged in a pattern too deliberate to be coincidence, and at the center stood a statue. 7 feet tall, made of wood blackened by flame, the figure of a man in a janitor's jumpsuit, but its mouth gaped wide as if mid-scream. A ring of keys hung from its hand, the real kind, rusted, blood-stained, and faintly jingling. Rowan approached, reading the inscription etched into its chest. "He who scrubs away sin shall never sleep again. In blood and brine we name thee servant, custodian, eternal." Cass gasped. "This is a shrine." "No," Marley whispered. "It's a contract." The room groaned. One of the parchments fell from the wall. Behind it, nailed in place, was a photograph, black and white. Gravebirch staff, 1957. There he was. Emery Thorne, the janitor. Beside him stood a younger Principal Gellert, smiling, not aged a day since. Ezra stepped forward. They knew. They all knew. The statue's keys rattled. The lights from their flashlights dimmed. The room grew colder. Then the mouth of the statue moved. "One of you knows." The voice came from inside their heads, a scraping, bleached whisper that seared their thoughts. The statue's wooden eyes bled, and suddenly Rowan staggered back, eyes wide, whispering, "I saw him in the woods last year. I didn't know what I saw." The room shuddered. Water began dripping from the ceiling, milky, thick soap. Cass screamed. They ran up the spiral stairs. The door above had begun to shut on its own. Marley shoved her shoulder against it as something clawed from beneath, slapping wet hands on the stone. They slammed it shut and bolted it. As the echoes faded, they heard the last jingle of the keys and a final whisper. "He was promised. He was made. You are next." Later that night, in Cass's room, the group huddled in silence. The photo lay between them. Principal Gellert hadn't changed in 70 years, not a wrinkle. Rowan looked up, his voice like sandpaper. He didn't just summon the janitor, he became his keeper. And outside, in the fog crawling across the lawn, the keys began to jingle again. They returned to the school the next night, not because they were brave, because there was no other choice. The deaths were accelerating. Students began vanishing in daylight. A teacher collapsed mid-lecture, her mouth foaming with bleach. A freshman was found upside down in a janitor's closet, eyes wide, lungs filled with mop water. And now, Ezra's brother was missing. They broke into Gellert's office. The desk was old oak, humming with a quiet energy like it remembered every secret whispered in this school. Marley found a hidden drawer. Inside, a ledger. Names, years, sacrifices. Gellert had made a pact with Emery Thorne to preserve Gravebirch High, eternal protection in exchange for blood. Every 7 years, the janitor would awaken. Chosen students, chosen staff, anyone who had seen too much, anyone who questioned. Cass trembled as she flipped to the final page. Marley Ellison, Rowan Graves, Cass Dale, Ezra Tolk, all 4 of them. Chosen. "We were marked before we ever stepped foot here," Rowan said, voice hollow. "He's not hunting us," Marley whispered. "He's collecting us." A scream ripped through the intercom. Ezra ran. They found him outside room 237, where the lock had melted away like wax. Gellert stood in the hallway, arms wide. "You were always meant to clean up the mess," he said, smiling with blood on his teeth. "Now you can join the staff." The hallway warped, reality twisted, the walls rippled like water, time fractured. Rowan fell to his knees. From the room, the janitor emerged, 7 feet tall, eyes hollow, keys rattling like laughter. He passed Gellert, who bowed, and reached for Ezra. There was no scream, just silence. Cass pulled the fire alarm. Sirens howled. The building shook. The janitor stopped, turned, stared at Marley, and with a slow, cracking whisper, "She remembers the pact." The floor beneath them shattered. They fell, through the school, through time, into a place beneath the foundation, into the Thorn Mausoleum, where hundreds of mop buckets lined the walls, each filled with bones, each marked with a name, and only 3 remained empty. Cass, Marley, Rowan. But Ezra's had just been filled. The janitor loomed. Gellert stepped forward, younger now, eyes burning white. "You can't stop it," he said. "It's built into the walls, into the town." Rowan stood. "No," he said, "but we can burn it down." He pulled a match from his coat, the same one his grandmother gave him from the old church, soaked in sacred oil. He struck it. The room ignited. The janitor screamed. The mausoleum split open, light pouring through the cracks, and just before the flame consumed everything, Marley saw the janitor remove his cap. It was her father. 3 months later, Gravebirch High was rebuilt. New stone, new walls, clean, too clean. Cass and Rowan walked past the new school sign. The wind carried a faint jingle. Keys, a new janitor had been hired, young, quiet. His name tag read, E. Thorne Jr., and behind him, in the windows of room 237, something watched. The mop bucket slowly filled. The school bell rang, and the cleaning began again.